Welcome to DIYEasyCrafts.com. Today we're going to take a look at a new product by Origin Blade Maker. We're going to take a look at the setup and also product review on their 9-inch disc grinder. And it's actually two different products. We're combining both their disc grinder plate or disc, which you can see here, with the chassis that they also offer. Now the chassis is very heavy duty construction and it can mount to any work table. Disc grinders are perfect for the knife maker that wants to really kind of improve their game a little bit, improve the fit and finish of their finished product. Now I mounted mine onto a Harbor Freight, I guess it was a grinder stand, and that worked out nice for the size of my shop. The OBM, or the Origin Blade Maker chassis, very heavy duty construction, all powder coated. A small amount of assembly required. It comes with two precision shoulder screws for each side that have to get screwed into place, as well as a lockdown knob. In order to assemble the unit, and you can certainly use this plate as well as the chassis on almost any electric motor, I removed the front plate and removed the disc. Then I slid, this is a 1 horsepower iron horse motor. I slid that into positioned the keyway straight up and down so that I could easily locate it on the disc or on the plate. And then you just slide the plate into position. Once the plate is in position, I locked it down, or I bolted the iron horse motor directly to the OBM chassis. And the chassis I had already mounted or already bolted onto that Harbor Freight grinder stand. Now, if you look at most electric motors, it will have a diagram for the wiring. This one I'm going to run 110. You can set up these motors different ways. This is a single phase 1 horsepower iron horse motor. I'm not going to go into detail on wiring the switch, but basically you're combining the blue, orange, and red together into line 1, and the white, yellow, and black will be on line 2. And I'm going to switch line 1. Now I mounted a switch box right onto the same Harbor Freight stand. So after I get the wiring done, screw the plate cover back onto that switch plate. I'm ready to add the abrasive disc. You can spray glue, apply glue separately to these things. I'm using self-adhesive 9-inch discs. I got these at Grainger. The one thing that you do want to do, first time I didn't do it, you have to degrease that plate before you apply the disc. It will just not adhere very well if you don't. Once the disc is in place, you can replace that front guard, and that's just 2 screws. I also went with an 80 grit paper, and in hindsight, that's a little bit too coarse. I think I'm going to change that and either go to a 120 or something in the 220, 240 range. This particular disc grinder I'm going to use mostly for finishing small parts and improving the fit between bolster and blade and bolster and handle. Anyway, once that front plate is back on, you can add the table. The table just slides right over both of those precision shoulder screws and can be locked into position or basically into almost any angle. Now, the first time I set this up, I set the distance between the plate and the table a little bit too tight. So when I went to angle the table down, it made contact with the plate itself. Very easy fix, just had to loosen the set screw on the back of that motor shaft, and I just slid the disc back a little bit. After that, it worked absolutely perfectly. Very, very heavy-duty construction. The table is nice and solid. The tilt is very nicely done. The way that they've, grooved both of those slots. You can set the angle on this in a couple of different ways. You can use an angle meter. What I found that I just cut down a square, and then I can use that very quickly and very easily to establish a 90-degree angle. And the majority of the time, this table is going to be set at 90 degrees, at least for the work that I'm doing. So I can use this to flatten the back of a bolster, and this would be the contact surface between the bolster and the blade. I can also use it to clean up the factory edge. Now this is a 1/4 inch by 1 inch brass that I buy. I think I got this also from Grainger. But I can clean up that factory edge to make it absolutely perfectly flat and square, so that both flat surfaces are now square to each other. I'm also going to square off the scale or the handle material. And by doing this, I should really improve the fit between the bolster and the blade, and the bolster and the scale material. So I won't have any gaps or spaces. This is one of those tools that a lot of knife makers didn't realize that they needed until they had one. And then once you have one, you just don't know how you ever could have survived without it. A lot of guys will also flatten the surface of the blade. You can apparently grind flatter on a disc grinder than you can on a belt sander. And one of the reasons I was told is that, the belt runs over the flat platen. It's not attached to the flat platen like this disc is to this plate, so that you can get a little bit of wiggle and a little bit of wobble in between the belt on a belt sander and the platen. You don't have that issue with a disc grinder. So you get nice flat surfaces on both sides, and really should, improve the fit and finish of my finished products. Now, what I also want to do on this disc grinder is create some dovetail bolsters. And dovetail bolsters usually at about 45 degrees. The angle actually doesn't really matter that much. It's whatever is visually appealing to your eye. But you're going to grind an angle on the bolster, and then without adjusting the table, you also want to grind the same angle on the scale material. Just carefully going back and forth and evenly bringing up that angle to the upper edge of the brass. Because I could certainly push harder on one side and get it to be uneven. So you want it to be kind of even, flat, and square. This is a test piece of scale material. This happens to be teak. And I'm going to grind the same angle, and then I'm going to match them up. So doing it this way, I should get a perfect fit, or as close to perfect as possible, between the bolster and the scale. So the scales will slide right up underneath that bolster angle. There won't be any gap or air. This is kind of hard to show on video, but I usually hold it up to a light and see if I can see any gap in between. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. I certainly love this new grinder. It's a 9-inch disc grinder by Origin Blade Maker. Please check us out on the web at DIYEasyCrafts.com. Join us on our Facebook group, Knives and Knife Making. And please check me out on my website, www.bergknifemaking.com. Thank you very much.